Hey y'all, I just kind of wanted to share of a little reflection I had from my Bible study this morning. It's a lot of stuff going on outside. Ambulances have been back and forth. Um, but this morning, God told me that God had to tear away the parts of your house slash self that make your foundation unsteady. And so when I was reading Leviticus chapter 14, I am going to start with verse 33 and 34. And so it says, Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, When you arrive in Canaan, the land I am giving you as your own possession, I may contaminate some of the houses in your land with mildew. What is mildew, right? I don't think everyone knows what mildew is, but it is a fungi, is a type of mold. And so when mold grows inside a home, over time it releases spores into the air, which attacks the respiratory system, which can lead to asthma, coughing, wheezing, itchy eyes, headaches, skin irritation. But it basically makes it to where you cannot breathe efficiently, and you are slowly, I don't want to say dying, but just it's becoming harder and harder to breathe. And that just made me think of when we are going through changes in life, right? We're surrounded by people and places. That's why that song makes sense. Okay, sorry. We're surrounded by people and places, and eventually we get tired of that and we don't want to be around that anymore. Like it's just suffocating us. We feel like I just can't be in this place anymore. I don't know where I'm going next, but I know that here is not where I can stay. And so I was listening to a bunch of like my emo and rock songs yesterday, and Home by Daughtry was ministering to my soul, right? And so the chorus of this says, Well, I'm going home, back to the place where I belong and where your love has always been enough for me. I'm not running from, no, I think you got me all wrong. I don't regret this life I chose for me. But these places and these faces are getting old, so I'm going home. That just made me realize that when we get fed up, we are now in a position that God can isolate us, right? And that He can finally put us through the test to mold us into the person that He wants us to become. And so Leviticus chapter 14, verse 13 through 38 says, 36 through 38. Okay. Before the priest goes in to inspect the house, he must have the house emptied, so nothing inside will be pronounced ceremonially unclean. Then the priest will go in and examine the mildew on the walls. If he finds greenish or reddish streaks and the contamination appears to be deeper than the wall's surface, the priest will step outside the door and put the house in quarantine for 7 days. Right? And so I'm taking this as God is the priest. God is coming to examine our hearts, our thought process, our mindsets, our characteristics. And so He puts us in this isolation period so that we have time to self-reflect, sit in those feelings, and understand why we are fed up. What is it about it that we no longer want? You know, like what is it that God is trying to evolve within us? And so the house being emptied just made me think of all the characteristics and the tests that we have gone through and that we have passed, and God not wanting us to lose those aspects. So it's like He's safeguarding them in a special place for us so that we can continue to nurture those and bring abundance and blessings through those characteristics He's given us, right? And so once God quarantines us, we're in this season of isolation, we can clearly start to hear His voice, because that's the only voice that's around us. We're not around our family, we're not around our friends. You may still be going to work. You may not have a job, it's just complete silence. And then in Leviticus chapter 14, verse 39 through 45, right? Yeah, okay. It says, on the seventh day, the priest must return for another inspection. If he finds that the mildew on the walls of the house has spread, the priest must order that the stones of those areas be removed. The contaminated material will then be taken outside the town to an area designated as ceremonially unclean. Next, the inside walls of the entire house must be scraped thoroughly, and the scrapings be dumped in the unclean place outside the town. Other stones will be brought in to replace the ones that were removed, and the walls will be replastered. And so that just made me think of, sometimes we don't have to go through a full cleanse, so to speak. Like, there are not a million things that need to be removed, just a few. And so God is able to pick out those pieces and then bring in the characteristics that he needs you to have, the mindset that he needs you to have, the position that he needs you to have, so that you can now become a solid foundation again. And God is so gracious that he allows us to just replace the walls in certain situations instead of needing to do a full rebuild. But there are times that he does need to destroy the whole house and just start from scratch. But if the mildew reappears after all the stones have been replaced and the house has been scraped and replastered, the priest must return and inspect the house again. If he finds that the mildew has spread, the walls are clearly contaminated with serious mildew, and the house is defiled. It must be torn down, and its stones, timbers, and plaster must be carried out of town to a place designated as ceremonially unclean. Let's think of all the times where God puts you in a new position, a new city, and you are away from everything that you know, right? That is a time that God is rebuilding you from scratch to make you structurally sound, because the bottom support is not what it needs to be. And that can be from generational curses, because the children do bear the weight of curses from our parents, our grandparents, things like that. But then you have the teachings that we get from our parents because they don't know better, or they're just not in a position to understand what God is going to do for you in the future. Oh, jeez. Okay. And so, while in isolation, God is able to design a test that will either remove a few things or cause a complete rebuild. There are things in our lives that God removes so he can bring them to us in a way we never thought possible on our own, raising our faith in him to keep our promises. So let's say your car got repossessed, but then God blesses you with a brand new car that has everything that you asked for, and you have no idea how that was possible. Or God, you move to a new city and God blesses you with an amazing apartment that has more things than your previous apartment or your house, and it has all the things that you asked for, but you are just not physically in a position to bring that forth on your own. Like, you need God to do that with you. And it's just amazing how God is gracious and merciful enough to not hold our past against us and still bless us with things that we need, and even exceed our expectations in those blessings that he gives us. And so I was just listening to music this morning, and there's a leak in this old building by LaShawn Pace. It was just ministering to my soul. It was just ministering to me, because right now I am in a season of a complete rebuild. I moved to a new city. I haven't had my own apartment for the past 2 months. I'm currently staying with a friend. I haven't had a job in 2 months. We don't have a car. Like, I'm just starting from the ground up again. And so while listening to this song, I don't know, I listen to the song all the time, but it just didn't touch my spirit as much as it did today. I just feel like my test is over. And I think there's somebody else out there who feels like their test is over. You can tell that this isolation season is not going to be an isolation season for very long. So it says, this old building keeps on leaning, and my soul has got to move. You could feel yourself having issues breathing and continuing, but now God has brought you through this test, and you now have a solid foundation to move to the next place. And the part that just kept ministering to my soul is, I'll be living in my brand new home. I've got another building, a building not made by man's hands. You know what? I'm moving. I'm moving home. When you see me praising the Lord, I'm moving home. You have been praising God because you know the quarantine season is coming to an end, and you're about to be moving on to something better that God has created special for you. You know that this season is coming to an end. You know that you can't stay here. You're ready to move. You're ready for God to come tell you that you're ceremonially clean. You're ready for God to tell you that the mildew that was within you, the things that were suffocating you, the things that were preventing you from being able to just take that deep breath, they're gonna go away. And I can't wait to see the home that God is blessing you with. I do hope that you guys come back and share your testimonies when you do receive it. I would love to hear that. But if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday. If you are in Houston, the rodeo is starting, so go check out the rodeo. I know I will be taking my son. This is our first rodeo. We've been in Texas for 2 months, so super excited. Bye.